Hi everyone, it's me, Carrie. I want to welcome you here in this community of embodied wisdom and creativity. Um, the intention behind this community is to really support you in your personal growth, your spiritual growth, your path, in your day-to-day and just overall evolution. I want to provide you with inspiring conversations that are supportive, that are also practical, with giving you tools that you can actually practice day to day, that don't take up an hour of your time, that are a lot more quick and easy to use. And my intention behind these videos too is to also keep them nice and short. And I'd like to also provide oftentimes a bit of background too, in terms of why these tools are effective. Also maybe share my experience with them. And all the tools and information that I'm sharing with you come from my own personal experience and research. From my mentors, or just, again, research that I've done independently on my own as well. And so I really love sharing discoveries and new leading edge science rather, that is, really starting to merge and bridge with what ancient spiritual traditions have been telling us, showing us, revealing to us all this time. They're starting to now kind of have the same conversations, maybe using different language, but there's that. And also, science is also just starting to now figure out how, certain spiritual traditions are, able to get into certain, let's say, brainwave states to accomplish states of, self-regulation that they couldn't previously explain, such as, being able to regulate, your own body temperature, self-healing, all those various things. So I like to share things like that with you guys when possible, because I find it fascinating, being a scientist myself, or at least my background being in that, in part in biology specifically, neuroscience and psychology. So without further ado, for this particular video, I wanted to share with you brain-heart coherence, or brain-heart harmony as it's sometimes called. And this particular technique was developed by the Institute of Heart Math. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but if not, I would highly recommend that you check them out. They are an institute that is comprised of many, many amazing scientists and researchers who look at the connection between the brain and the heart in ways that it hasn't been studied or explored previously. And what they've, not they specifically discovered, but this was actually maybe in the 90s, I think, they discovered, or a certain scientist, that the heart actually has a conglomerate of sensory neurites. In other words, it kind of has its own brain. And that's really interesting in and of itself. But here's what's even more interesting, is that they've also discovered that these cells, the sensory neurites, the brain of the heart, actually stores its own memories, thoughts, and feelings independent of the brain. So that's really fascinating. And the heart and the brain actually communicate. No surprise there exactly, but it's kind of a two-way street. It's a super highway. But what's really fascinating is that the heart is actually sending more messages to the brain than the other way around, than the brain is sending to the heart. So what is really cool about the brain-heart coherence and what it enables and allows for is that when you can actually harmonize your heart and your brain to be the same frequency, what that allows for is you to tap in to your intuition, among other things. It also promotes healing capacities, because what happens when we create that coherent state is that it allows our heart to actually convey to the brain that things are well, things are safe. And so the brain then interprets that as like, okay, all is well. I can therefore create healing biochemistry rather than stress chemistry, right? So cortisol and adrenaline. And the other interesting thing too is that it tends to, when we harmonize these two organs to create the connections between them, it also puts us often in a gamma state, brainwave state, which is what often, nuns and monks and people who meditate regularly fall into. And so that brings us into other conversations that we can maybe have another time, that allows us for other self-regulating, let's say, capacities, and that are considered to be, let's say, supernatural or superhuman. But what we're discovering through these, research institutes that kind of veer off the mainstream course is that this is not so supernatural, that this is actually an inner technology that everyone has access to, but was just utilized by, ancient traditions that knew how to use it. So now what this is enabling us to do is to do that ourselves. And again, talking about the self-healing that it allows for, they've discovered that when you harmonize your heart and your brain, that it releases something like, it can release up to 1,300 like positive biochemical reactions in your body. So a really, positive, strong immune response, as well as all sorts of, hormones that are, positive, serotonin, dopamine, etc. So yeah, really interesting stuff. There's a little bit more to it than that, but without further ado, again, I want to keep these videos short, so I'm going to show you this particular technique. It's really, really simple. It really only has 3 steps to it, but don't let the simplicity of it throw you off or think that it's not effective because of that. That's our mind all on its own trying to run the show, which is unfortunately the case in our, oftentimes in Western society, we're in our rational analytical brain. And again, when you harmonize with your heart, you have access to so much more information, because again, the heart actually stores its own set of memories, feelings, and thoughts that, that you will have access to, instead of just using the memory storage and thoughts, feelings, that habits, etc., that you tend to fall into on a regular basis, that you're very, very familiar with. It creates, the same patterns and choices in your life. So this enables you to make more informed decisions, let's say. And if you want to know more about this, or you have any questions, because I know I wasn't able to cover, this whole amazing topic at length, please feel free to email me at carrielandrycoaching@gmail.com. So here's the brain heart coherence. It's a simple exercise that you can use anytime. I would recommend doing it in the morning, first thing in the morning, and then again at night before bed, and at any point in the day where you're really feeling stress. So that's the thing that I really didn't talk about, is that why this frequency of coherence is so important. Well, the heart is always sending messages, like I said, to the brain. And when we're in a jittery or stressed out or negative, let's say, emotional or feeling state, it creates an incoherent signal in the heart itself, the heart rate. And so that message gets sent, that incoherent message gets sent to the brain, which then tells the brain, okay, we're not safe, we have to set off the stress response. So it does. And so what this exercise does is that it enables us, through creating a different feeling state, to create coherence in the heart, which then gets transmitted to the brain, which then allows for positive, healing, regenerative, restorative biochemistry to be released into the body, that enables us to then perceive and see and make different choices. So this particular frequency, interestingly enough, is 0.1 hertz. It's a very low frequency. It's actually, interestingly, the frequency that whales use to communicate underwater. So we're very connected to nature too. Surprise! We are nature. But again, here we go. Really, truly, I'm going to do the exercise this time. So hands on your heart. And what this does, just putting your hand on the heart, you can also create, a mudra, a prayer position over your heart, and you want to make contact with it with your thumbs. Press your thumbs up against your chest, your sternum. And this creates awareness in the body. As soon as you touch a part of your body, as you know, it brings your awareness there. So that's what we want. So awareness in the chest, in the heart area. You can even imagine taking an elevator ride down from your head down into your heart. That sometimes helps too. When you feel more of your awareness there, just start to breathe into your heart and through your heart. So breath in the heart and breath out. So you're breathing through your heart. And make these breaths, the inhale and exhale, a little bit longer than you would normally naturally breathe, let's say. So something like 5 to 6 second inhale, 5 to 6 second exhale. So do this maybe for 4 or 5 breaths. When you start to feel maybe a little more calm, you can bring in the third step. But even in this step here, as you start to feel more into your heart, maybe start to feel more calm, clarity, like you're tapping into a different energy, you're able to communicate with your heart and ask it questions at this point. If you have any, if you're asking for your heart's wisdom, you can ask questions when you're in this state. And the language of the heart is very different from the mind, I should say. The mind, when you ask it questions, it wants to give you a whole analysis, it wants to tell you a story, it often has a very strong energy, it's really forceful. So that's your mind. If you ask a question to your heart and you get an answer like that, you know it's not coming from the heart. The heart is very concise, simple, and usually very kind and benevolent. And sometimes it doesn't speak to you in words, and if it does, it's very subtle. Sometimes it's really just an energetic thing or an inner knowing, but again, subtle. So going back to the breath in the heart, the next step that you want to do is create a feeling that is that of gratitude, appreciation, care, compassion, kindness. And in order to do so, you can conjure up a memory or thinking about a person, place, or thing that makes you feel grateful, makes you feel compassionate or appreciation, or any one of those emotions. Because it's this feeling state that you generate within that creates the coherence. So just dwell in that state for as long as you want. But the beautiful thing about this is just a 2 to 3 minute practice of this has huge effects in terms of affecting your biochemistry, your well-being. It can have lasting effects up to 6 to 8 hours in your system from just 2 to 3 minutes of practice is what they found. So I hope this is helpful to you. Again, if you have any more questions, just, you can send me a message over Facebook, or you can email me at carrielandrycoaching.com. And if you want more support in, heart-based living or energy medicine, I'm here to support you into, learning to tap into your truth, your inner wisdom, to live from that place of wholeness and well-being. Much love to you. Have a great, wonderful week.